I want to start with a story. My second day at the University of Illinois, I walk into the gym to play basketball, and there's 3 games going on. There's a black game, an Asian game, and a white game. And I start walking towards the white game. And then I pause, and I look back at the black and the Asian kids, and I'm kind of thinking this in my head. Hey, they look nice. They'll let us play. I start walking, a couple more steps, and I pause, and I look back, and these black and Asian guys, they look perfectly comfortable playing in their own games. And I think to myself, how come I'm not playing in the games with the kids who look like me? With the kids who call their nanimas nanima, not grandma? Why am I walking towards the white game? And then I had this thought, have I always walked towards the white game? And then I left because my head was about to explode. Right? But that day at the University of Illinois, like that was my first day of consciousness. And part of the beauty of college for me, and this was early, mid-1990s, it was another inflection point in the diversity movement. We're seeing that now. It was a conversation around these things, right? You couldn't walk 10 feet in any direction without running into somebody reading Race Matters by Cornel West or something by Bell Hooks or Audre Lorde. And like I took the pill. I swallowed it whole. I swallowed one pill whole when I was growing up in the western suburbs of Chicago, and I swallowed the alternative pill when I was in college. I became this diversity progressive. And so much of what I've done for the past quarter century is participate in one diversity progressive cause or another. I started an organization called IFYC that works with college campuses on race, gender, sexuality, religion issues, with the notion that these things shape our experiences and they structure our society. I was involved in Obama World a decade ago, right? This moment of like really, really, really profound hope for lots of us. And then part of what happens towards the end of that era is a sense of frustration that progress isn't coming fast enough and it's not evenly distributed, right? And these folks in D.C., of which I was one for a little while, just wasn't happening fast enough. And so, you know, folks in my quarters, we started marching for the matter of Black lives. And we started tweeting about the whiteness of the Oscars. And right about this time, this is November 2015, I take my New York Times out of its blue wrapper. I'm a 20th century creature. I still read it in paper. And there's a front page story. And it's about the spike in mortality rates of white folks in America who don't have college degrees. And I'm reading this story, like this landscape of opioids and addictions and alcoholism and suicide deaths of despair is what scholars call them. And it feels like I'm reading about Mars, right? Like I live in Whole Foods America. I live in urban, progressive, multicultural, highly educated America. And I feel like I'm reading about a totally different landscape. And then I have this like crazy moment of realization that I pass these places all the time. Like my life is spent being the diversity speaker on college campuses, and I fly into some airport or another in places like Ohio and Pennsylvania. I get in the back of some black car, and it takes me through this rural and exurban landscape about which, to that point, I had shown zero interest, no curiosity. What's happening here, right? So I'll be like at Oberlin or Kenyon, I'll be having a conversation with people of color and consciousness group about their oppression, and like I'll watch the white 65-year-old woman with half her teeth missing, like putting the cookies and coffee out, turning around and looking at these kids, and I'm thinking, she's thinking to herself, I'll trade places with you, right? And so like I'm going through all of this in my head, and this is right about the time that the Trump show is moving from an evil cartoon to a lived horror film, right? And that's not a joke, right? Like try telling like Muslim boys November 10th, 2016, it's gonna be okay, right? But this is April 2016. I'm in the back of one of these black cars the dude who's driving me through this exurban landscape is friendly enough. We're kind of bantering back and forth. I don't meet that many people who lost jobs when factories moved to Mexico. He happens to be one. I don't meet that many people who are patching together a life, an economic life after that. He happens to be one. We're bantering back and forth. And then he says, so you like Trump? We're being friendly with each other, right? So he's like, you like Trump? I'm like, are you nuts? Do you not see who's in the back of your car, right? Do you not know my name is Eboo? Like, really, right? And then I go through the top 10 racist things that Trump said yesterday. I'm like, how do you feel about all these things? It's still a friendly conversation. And he kind of nods. And at a red light, he turns around and he's like, do you remember when Hillary said that we're going to put a lot of coal miners out of work? And I thought for a second, and I'm like, no. And he said, yeah, nobody I ever drive to Princeton remembers that. And it was like a moment for me, right? Like, I live in a nation of 330 million people, and I think to myself, like, I was derelict in my duty to, like, not show curiosity about half the nation. That's a failure of citizenship. And so I just wanted to do my part in correcting that. And this is, I think, where it gets hard, right? So I tried to start having more conversations with more drivers, with my cable guy, with, the folks who work at Oberlin and Kenyon. And they kind of looked at me, and they're, like, dude, who are you? Like, you're an alien, right? And I'm, like, trying to tell my diversity progressive friends, that's still my community, that I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to understand this other world. And they're like, really? You're a traitor, right? So, David writes about being a boundary stalker, living between two worlds, or trying to be in the center. And I love that. And there's another part of it, right? Which is, what does it feel like to reach out to a world who's like, you know what? We're winning now. You knowledge workers, you live in an economy that's eaten us alive. But we're winning now. So I'm going to tell you what I think of you. You're an alien. And my folks who are like, yeah, well, we're the people who Plymouth Rock landed on. So if you're not with us now, you're a traitor. So I guess I came to find other alien traitors. That's what I came for. Right? And one of the things I know about diversity work, after doing it for 25 years, is it's not just about the differences you like. It's about teasing apart, I think, three things. Number one, diversity work is about marginalization, and the historic marginalization, and the systemic, intentional, like real estate agents who took red markers and drew red lines and knew what they were doing. It's about tribalism, and it's about deep disagreement. And I think the great challenge is, how do you engage marginalization without unnecessarily exacerbating tribalism? How do you deal with tribalism in a way that doesn't pretend marginalization has vanished? And how do you build a beloved community that's thick and strong and loving enough to hold the inevitable deep disagreements that arise?